session of the Electoral Board to order. I'm Kate Hanlon, the chairman of the Electoral Board, and this is
Kevin Pinckney.
the vice chair of the Electoral Board. First, let me tell you that this is going to be, this, as you remember, is recorded for those of you online. If face to be shown, go behind your name. Vice Chair of the Secretary, Treasurer Jeff Shapiro is going to be participating remotely today, and let me say I can't see him. Jeff, are you there?
I am here.
You're here. Okay, would you state for the record your location and why you're participating remotely?
Yes, I am out of town. As you know, our meeting is normally on the 9th. So this one sort of collided with an out of town visit to South Bethany.
Okay. So you've heard Vice Chairman Shapiro calling in. Jeff, can you hear all of us in the room?
I can.
Hear Mr. Pinckney? Say hello.
Yes, sound check.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
Do I hear a motion that this member's voice can be adequately heard and that their remote participation comports with our remote participation policy? Is there a motion?
I so moved.
I'll second it. We'll discuss it. I don't think we have any. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Shapiro, you're on board. You have the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Second. All
Second.
those in favor of the motion.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's my fault for not being there. You get to second everything. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
My computer has gone completely. I have a big line across everybody on the top that said this meeting is being recorded, Jeff, so I can't see you, but I know we're being recorded. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of September 10th?
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes of the meeting of September 10th. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Appointment of election officers. We have in front of us the adoption of 419 election officers, 185 Democrats, 87 Republicans, and 147 unaffiliated. Is there a motion to appoint these officers?
I so move.
Is there a
Second.
second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. The general registrar's report. I haven't introduced you yet, general registrar. Hello, Mr. Spicer, our general registrar.
Thank you.
Uh,
You didn't recognize me.
Yeah, I didn't know who you were.
Word this month is a little bit longer because it's been a little longer between since our last board meeting, and also we're covering 2 elections. But please stop me if you have any questions or anything doesn't make sense. The first couple of pages, as usual, are registration stats. You see we're up to a little over 751,000 active registered, gain of about 5,000. And our total, including inactive, is just over 806,000. So not much change there. But as you would expect, the active number right now, the number of changes in active registration, the subtractions. Again, remember this is for a 2-month period. So while it may seem high, the number deceased and all the other categories, it's right in line because it is for 2 months. Then the next page, the additions to the active registration, again, very much in line with what's for the rest of the year. Total of 11,000 additions for this 2-month period. And then again, the transactions, nothing is really out of line for this 2-month period compared to the rest of the year. That takes us to page 3. I wanted to give you a heads up. The board has in the past asked to be informed of the significant third-party mailers. So this was a third-party mailer to the Voter Participation Center, the voter information mailed to voters in Fairfax County. We processed 1,999 these, denied 1,322 registrations. There were 45 that were duplicates.
Can you explain more about what this is?
Busher, could you please come to the podium and
So the breakdown is for application that was sent out by third party. We received 3,365 absentee application. Some of those application was missing information, like the last 4 digit of social security number. So the one it was missing social security number, we denied 1,322 application. And the one who was complete application, absentee application was processed was 1,998. Sure.
Had the Voter Participation Center and the Center for Voter Information previously participated in a third-party mailer in Fairfax County?
Yes,
Is this an annual effort for them or a periodic effort?
I think it's annual, right?
I think it's, yeah. Not more than others, but it's frequent. Maybe you're. Yes, they participate. When they do it, they participate.
Are they required to get training from the state with respect to what's required to register voters?
When I misspoke, my registration is for absentee.
Oh, okay.
It's both, actually,
Well,
two different things.
In any event, a drop-off rate of 33% indicates that 1 in every 3 voters that they reached out to try to get them through the wickets, they get. So they're like, that's a C average, that's not really good. Do we give them training? Is our training to them defective? Do they get training from the state, and is the state training defective? I mean, this is a lot of effort to do outreach.
This comes in the mail.
It's just paper, so there is no training, there is no outreach.
We don't know what they do. This is a mailing by an organization that does it in other states besides Virginia. And 2 organizations, and they're all mail applications, either for an absentee ballot or a voter registration. And these two, I don't know which one does which, because I can never keep track of the 2 organizations. But we get mail for separate mail, a set of mail, for example, for the registrations, you can see we had a lot, they're not listed here. They're back here under the voter registration. So these are just the ones for absentee ballots. There were many more of them than there were for voter registration. The voter registration one didn't even stand out as a particularly large number for I gather by reading this. But these are 2 organizations that announce the years they're gonna do it. They tell everybody they're gonna do it, and they do it.
And they do it poorly.
I'm sorry.
Treasurer, can I see not during this meeting, but afterwards, I'd like to review maybe 30, let's just say 30 of the denied, so I get a sense for
Denial.
what the denials are for, what's happening here. Sure, that's fine, thank you.
Mostly.
Okay, thank you.
So so what you're saying is out of what you're talking about, Kevin, is there's roughly 2,000 sent out and more than half were denied.
3,000 were received by our office, 2,000, almost 2,000 were processed, 1,300 were denied. So that's over a third of, it's almost going to a lot of trouble. Often there are rules about collecting at least ballot, registering people to vote. You have to be trained to make sure that they do a good job. And, this indicates over 1,000 citizens trying to do something and failing to do it.
This
Yeah.
numbers, Jeff, are absentee ballot applications. The ones
Yeah,
that,
and we don't know what, I would be interested to find out what the denials are based on. But let me ask you this, do we have any say in this, or are these third parties just under, if under law, just able, that this is something that they choose to do. Is this being done under our auspices, or is this something that is out of our control?
These are two organizations that do this, I think, more than Virginia. They do it pretty much nationwide. They announce what state to the states generally that this is gonna happen, and we get it in the mail here. That's all we know about.
Yeah, so it may be that we have no ability to influence this, but the idea that someone in the electoral process is reaching out to voters and bringing, I mean, brings it into disrepute, right? Oh, I tried to vote absentee and I filled out the paperwork, and anyway, it just, I'm troubled that a third of our fellow citizens, when they're trying to interact with our office, and I think they are probably, because the mail probably gets sent to us. It's just a shocking, you expect human error, but 1/3, there's something else, there's a problem. So
Yeah,
I'd like to understand it better, even if it's not our organization. If they're out there sullying the good name of election operations or administration, it's a problem.
Well-
And they don't get done what they want to do.
let me ask you this, when we get absentee ballot where the voter contacts the office and asks for that, is the acceptance rate like close to 100%? Is it like very different than what this looks like?
Can you,
So
That's what percentage of absentee is.
when people come in and use our process to request absentee, what's the success rate of them using our absentee request rate?
If they do it in person in the office, 100%.
Yeah.
Can I add something? Okay. So for all of you now, just to add to your information, we send them a new application, absentee application, and we receive response back with the complete application from the voter. So our procedure, after we deny, we send them a new absentee application and reach out to them, and we told them you're missing last 4 digits of your social that is by law required on your absentee application. So we receive response with the complete application, absentee application from the voter. We process that.
So on those 1,300 that were denied, you have a statistic on how many you reached out to and have responded?
I think we do.
Okay, great, thanks.
Next section is about the December 9th special election for Braddock District Supervisor. Early voting will begin tomorrow. This is about 89,000 voters in the Braddock District. And I believe, Kate, it's historic. We already had 2 elections at the same time.
sorry.
I don't think we've ever had 2 elections going on at the same time.
Well, I don't know that I'm the oracle and the historical here, but I don't remember one. Somebody else in the room may remember 2 elections at the same time, but I don't think so. It's very unusual. They
It is.
usually run sequentially.
And there are challenges. One, for example, the SDR rules usually don't apply until you get close to the day, which in this case is December 9th. But the books will be closed for the November election. So they will also be, individuals have to follow the SDR rules for the Braddock District between October 25th and November 4th. Also, we will only be open our normal hours on November 4th for the Braddock District. Will be open from 8 to 4:30. Of course, the precincts will be open at 6 in the morning. Another thing, we will have concurrent, the voting is at all the other locations, is downstairs for the gubernatorial election, and it will begin tomorrow in front of our office. We've already got that set up. And we've got the other key dates here. We will open the Burke Center Library, will be the only additional location, and that will open during the last week for 2 Saturdays and the 5 days in between. Also Sunday.
Have we ever done Sunday voting before?
Yes.
And we'll be open this Sunday. Yeah, that's this Sunday for all locations. Then early voting for the November 4th election has been underway. As of last Friday, we were at just over 37,000 voters. We're on track to get to about close to 150,000 voters. So a lot of early voting. Page 4 of the early voting, just some more information about the December 9th election. As I just now mentioned, voting for this election will be at the front of our office. If somebody comes, there will be signs directing, telling voters that there's also the Braddock election. We will not verbally tell voters who show up downstairs for the gubernatorial election because we don't want any kind of confusion. We want something written so every voter is sure to get the same message. Then that takes us into the absentee mail requests, and for each section, we will go through both elections. Here's a breakdown for the November 4th election. 84,000 absentee ballot applications, and we run through which type. Of course, most of them, as usual, were permanent, 70,000, just over 70,000 permanent, just over 5,000 overseas and military. And as I said, the total 84,167. We've gotten just over 8,400 requests, absentee mail requests for the December 9th election. And again, we have the breakdown. That takes us to page 5. Election officers for the November 4th election. We have 2,324 election officers. You see the breakdown. Slightly more Democratic officers, 1,180, 850 Republican officers. We have every chief is a Republican. That may change. We've had to assign some backup Democratic chiefs just because, but we don't know if they will be assigned yet. And everybody has been confirmed and got their precinct assignments. And then the breakdown for the December 9th election, much smaller, 29 precincts. So we have 5 to 7 officers at each precinct, approximately 180 election officers. And then just a little bit of information, the training has been robust, and we've moved even a little bit further from during COVID, we had everything online. We like the in-person training. So we're doing a lot of in-person training. Over 1,000 election officers completed in-person classes, and 1,300 completed online. We also had a very successful in-person open house, not required, but a large number of election officers attended that. Election officer training for December 9th. That's going to be very small. There's only 29 precincts for that election, and most of the election officers will have already gotten their training for the other elections, so they won't have to take training again. Then the resource allocation for November 4th, you've already received that at our previous board meeting. We've just made some minor changes. Each precinct will receive 50 to 80% ballots for 50 to 80% of its registered voters, depending on past turnout. And we've already told you about the number of express votes, the number of poll pads, and there will be 2 divisional specialists at each location. Now it gets to the interesting part for December. We took this as an opportunity. One of the 3 action items from the electoral board that we'll talk more about later was to look at our use of ballots, since we have fewer voters on election day, to see where could we find any savings or efficiencies. So we've done that. As we say here, based on prior elections, election day turnout has ranged between 15 and 22%. The most recent election was 19% for the Braddock district for the December 9th special election. For this election, it may very well be under 10%, but it's hard to tell. It could be as high as 15%. We go through the allocation. We're doing the same 3 to 5 poll books, 2 ballot marking devices, 2 ballot scanners, 5 to 7 election officers. And then we get into the ballot order. Some jurisdictions may order 100%, no matter what the election, or if we have, like I said, for this election, November, we're ordering 50 to 70%. We cut this back to 25%, which is a very significant reduction for December. The reason we're able to do that is we have, as we talked about at the last meeting, the ballot on demand. We're going to use that more for any, if we need to print additional ballots. Under the second section on page 7, we're doing a pilot program. For this election, we're going to print the ballots for 9 of these precincts, approximately 8,000 ballots in-house. We have not done that previously, but we have thoroughly tested the ballot on demand printers. We've used them for our LNA test. We know that they perform correctly. So we're going to print approximately 8,000 ballots. That'll save a couple $1,000, plus reducing our overall ballot order. We'll save a few $1,000s. But more importantly, this will prove that we can do this if we need to for other small elections or for emergency purposes. And also, this is for 9 precincts, 8,000 ballots. But each of those precincts will also receive a pack of 200 ballots from the vendor as a safeguard. They will also receive a much larger number of express vote cards at every one of these precincts. The point of all this is we're very seriously trying other methods. How can we have a very safe and secure election and never have any chance of running out of ballots? It also has some cost savings, as we've discussed previously. The other thing, in addition to all those factors, we want to wake up our vendor and make sure they understand, don't increase our prices because we do have alternatives. So that's always a good idea. If you're listening. So we're doing everything we can to have a great operation, very safe and secure, but also efficient. Then we get into the logic and accuracy testing. We're almost finished for this election. Election day poll books will be tested on November 2nd. We tested all the other equipment. Then we have logic and accuracy testing for the December 9th election. That's underway. You can see we've already done some of it October 17th. And that lays out the remainder of the logic and accuracy testing, which is very consistent. We do the same sort of testing for every election. Then on page 9, we've got a couple of personnel announcements. These are Raj here.
You got help with an election officer phone call.
Raj is he replaces Gretchen. He was a non-merit employee in office. And so Raj is now the election officer manager. And George, most of you know George, has been with the department since 2012. And so he got a promotion. And it's a position that we received in the budget, but we're not going to fill George's old position because we want to keep vacancies where we can to achieve cost savings. Our FOIAs, we received 17 FOIA requests and 4 NVRA requests since the August meeting. That takes us to 51 and 21 requests respectively. Our electronic poll book project, we've received all the equipment, tested the equipment. So that's, we're finalizing all of that. And then very excited to tell you about awards and recognitions, very well deserved. You see the list here, 10 individuals from our staff received county awards. We've got to turn in paperwork explaining their fantastic accomplishments. We've got an attachment to the GR report that goes into more detail, but you can just read through them, starting with Shirley Jones, fantastic deputy director, Robbie, who's actually the other deputy director, and let's read through the rest of them. That takes us to page 10. Communications and outreach. Of course, the first focus is deal with the press and deal with all communication efforts for the elections. But we mentioned a couple of other items that the communications and outreach section has been working on. We've had referrals to the Commonwealth's attorney for the 2-month period. There were 77 individuals that were removed by elect. 6 of those individuals re-registered and affirmed their citizenship. So we referred 71 individuals to the Commonwealth's attorney and the attorney general. And as I mentioned earlier, these are our responses to the board requests from the last meeting, the August meeting. First, the board requested the staff investigate a streamlined way to address surplus ballots, reducing the inappropriate places. And so we've already talked about how we're dealing with that. But again, being very careful, we never want to take a chance. We will never run out of ballots or even come close. And we also don't want to run around replacing ballots. That would not be efficient. And it's more challenging since we have precinct-specific ballots. Number 2, there were a couple of articles that were brought to our attention at the last board meeting. The secretary brought those 2 articles to our attention and asked us the board directed us to review them and to see if there was anything we could do for improvements. So Portia, working with me and working with Cheryl, we reviewed them very carefully. And there were really 2 articles. One was about possible duplicates, and one difficult thing for the individuals that put the 2 articles together. They don't have as much information as we have. We use everything, including social security numbers. We have a daily duplicate process. Could you just tell a little bit about both for the duplicate, our response for the duplicate, and also for the other one is about individuals that have been identified as possibly being non-citizens. The article referred to some of them that voted previously. That is correct. When they voted, they were actively registered. Later, they were identified by elect as possibly being non-citizens. They were removed from the rolls. So individuals only voted when they were active. The other thing that we point out here is that we have found there are definitely mistakes that are made at the DMV that while they've been identified as possibly being non-citizens by elect, we have found in many instances, those are mistakes that are made at DMV. Could you just tell a little bit about the duplicate process?
Yes. So we are required by the Department of Election to work on the daily duplicate report that will pop up on our hopper. So in our various database, there is a hopper called duplicate report. So any duplicate match that there will be 65% factor of matching will show up on our system. And we will do research by matching the social security number, last name, first name, date of birth, address, residence address. So if it's 100% match and we are 100% sure it's the same voter, we will merge those two records together. As a duplicate processing is an ongoing process. So some tasks happen daily if somebody entered a wrong social security number, created another record. But as I said, daily is an ongoing process that we are processing duplicate hopper in our base. Any duplicate will pop up, we will process it and merge two records together.
The other thing, as we mentioned here at the top of page 11, Elect has issued an advisory some time ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, that voter registration offices are not permitted to use third-party data to clean your rolls, to make changes, because the state has policies, including for the duplicates, they have policies in place. That being said, we still review anything that's submitted to us. We take it very seriously. We appreciate the time people put into this. We've gotten other reports in the past asking us to look at individuals that are over 100 to determine if they're really aligned. We go through that. We take all this very seriously, but we have not found anything that will cause us to change our policies or procedures. Thank you, Bushra.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Spicer?
Yes.
It says here, our office continues to learn that a significant number of these flagged records stem from paperwork and processing errors at the DMV. How do you learn that? Is that just informal? Sometimes you find out, or is there a systematic way to actually do that?
Thank you for that question, Jeff. Bushra can speak to it because she has experienced it. And in addition to her experience, which she'll tell you about, we've also gotten a lot of the anecdotal experience. People have told us this.
Actually today, I received a phone call from a father of the voter that they received intent to cancel for citizenship with their driver license that she received in the mail too. So he was surprised. How come they received the driver license, and when they show up at DMV to apply for real ID, they provided their certificate, social security card, residency, approval of residency, but still is showing that she is non-citizen, and we send her the letter intent to cancel her registration because of non-citizen. So I explained the procedure for him that whenever you visit DMV for any other transaction beside registration, if you do not check that I am a US citizen, or you check no, Department of Election provide us with the list of those voters that was provided by DMV. So we are required by law to send affirmation of citizenship to the voter, and they must to respond to us within 14 days. If we do not receive the response within 14 days, the registration will be canceled. So they will, as I said, is a lot of work for the voter, confusing. Many times we receive military, active military. They are saying why my registration has been canceled. Sometimes they are in submarine, they never receive the mail. So for those, all the example with the correspondence.
What did you experience at the DMV? Correct me if I'm wrong, that they had said non-citizen, the boxes at the
Yes.
top of the form, it was under the clipboard. And I believe, did they tell you, don't worry about that?
Yeah, so for myself, when I went to DMV to apply for my real ID, and I have all my proof, my passport, all my residency, my social security card. So they give me the form to how to apply, to fill it out. So they give me the form. The form has a clipboard. Under the clipboard has a question: are you a citizen? So I, in purpose, asked the supervisor there. I said, what's about this question? She said, don't worry about it. It's not important. Just fill out the others. This has happened to me in person. Yes. So I fill it out, but I checked it because I'm familiar with what's happening after that action if I did not check it.
I think it's clear what needs to happen is some improvement in the process in DMV, which of course we have no control over, but I believe Elect said they're working on.
They're supposed to be working on it. We sent them several situations and questions and things that we wanted them to bring up to the DMV. They said they have a hard time getting a meeting with the DMV in Richmond, the head of the DMV. And when they do, they appreciate our input. So I haven't heard back from them if they were able to meet with them or not.
Let me see if I can sum up what we've just heard. And I had somebody report to me the same thing that happened in a DMV in Charlottesville several years ago. You don't need to worry about that citizenship form, that citizenship question. So we are getting, the state is getting information that people are not citizens, not because they checked they were not, but because they may have not checked anything. In other words, what has to happen is you have to positively say you are a citizen or you're reported as not a citizen. So people that are missing the form are not a citizen as well. And that's not a new problem, by the way. I wish we could figure out I wish that there could be enough cooperation with DMV to be sure that question, that their workers are trained to know that question has implication for other things other than them having just seen the importance of the identification, that's the report of their identification to elections.
And finally, the policy that we're adhering to that the board enacted last September, just to be clear, that is not a finding of guilt. We are referring individuals that were identified by elect, not identified by us. And we are in no way, we're not in a position to find guilt. We refer them to the Commonwealth Attorney and to the Attorney General, and it's in their hands to determine. And then item 3 from the board was a request to provide a list of public buildings used as polling places, including facilities that are not in use. And so we've provided that to the electoral board for your review.
Before you go on, could I comment on that? It's a single sheet, sort of double-sided, of the public facilities that we use from the the park in McLean, actually, that's Tyson's, to all the parks, to the animal shelters. VDOT and GMU have buildings that we use that aren't county. This is a fairly extensive list of county facilities, and I want to thank Beth for putting it all together. But I would say that having looked at a number of these facilities, they're not usable. I think that there are probably people in this room who have served at the Providence Community Center room, the Providence Community Room. I won't mention any names, Andy, that says that know that this room is way, not just barely useful in Tyson's. And we're having a lot of issues trying to find places to vote in Tyson's. But many of these are not useful, or even less useful than that room is, because of a number of things. But thank you, Beth, for putting that together.
And finally, some of you may have heard about the hole punch issue. We heard about it for the first thing in the middle of the night last Tuesday evening, early Wednesday morning, when there was one posting on X about the hole punch, which has existed on our absentee ballot envelope since 2021. And that, of course, led to many other postings and comments and concerns. We took this very seriously. I want to point out first and most importantly, the Virginia Code, section 24.2704, requires all jurisdictions in Virginia to have some sort of either a hole punch, that's the first thing that they suggest in the code, or the first thing that they list. You can also have a sticker. There are a couple other things you can have, but as a tactile indicator that confirms for visually impaired and print disabled voters which envelope they should use. And what we did, we posted a statement explaining our security measures, everything that we do to secure we never look at a ballot associated with a voter. We're very, very careful. And so we went through those details of the consent, what we do. That was last Wednesday, the same immediately after. We have not gotten a complaint on this at all since 2021, but we took these very seriously and we immediately investigated the issue. And as some have noted, it's possible for the oval, for it to mark the mark where the voters made a selection for Attorney General to be seen through the envelope. But and that's only if you inserted it a certain way. If you did not, if you inserted it the way it was sent to you, that would not occur. And at most, you're seeing the mark. You're not seeing the mark associated with the candidate. But of course, there has been a lot of information posted. We try not to. We keep the ballot secret. And so we posted a second statement on Monday, providing additional information, making it clear to voters that they can vote a provisional ballot if they don't want to return their ballot, that they have other ways that they can vote. They could bring their ballot back and vote in person and solid. So we went through those, issued another statement. So that's it for.
Thank you, Mr.
May I follow up?
Yes, sure.
With respect to the second statement, thank you for issuing that. What was the dissemination? How was the second statement disseminated?
Was disseminated both on our website, very clear, very visible, and also through social media on X. And Sean, what was the other?
Yeah, so it's posted, the county channels we had available to us, so social media is X. And Blue Sky, it also, I believe, linked to the main county government channel on Facebook. It is on the homepage, the landing page. You don't have to click anywhere to get to it. It's on the initial landing page.
Did we issue something that had a caption of press release?
I believe it's captioned as state. It does not say press release.
Did we release something directly to the press, such as WTOP or other media?
Media inquiries have been directed to that and the social media posts. Yeah.
I'm not sure what you just, so was that a yes or no? Did we send a copy of our did we issue a press release?
We did not issue a press release. We posted the statement.
Okay,
Right.
so we haven't sent it to the Washington Post and asked them to please do it as a public service
We
announcement.
have not.
We haven't sent it to the Fairfax Times. We haven't sent it anywhere.
The folks that have reached out to us, but we have not proactively disseminated it to them.
Okay. Can we?
Certainly check with OPA on that. Find out what we can post out. I can tell you that it is certainly in the media now. Folks, as I mentioned, that we have responded to that have reached out.
Sure. Posting on our website. I understand why it needs to be on our website, but most of the people that I know have never been to the county's election website. I'm not on X or Blue Sky, so I wouldn't have known about this, but for the fact that Eric graciously called me at 7 a.m. on Monday, so I got a copy of it. But also the work over the weekend to prepare this. But yes, please check with
We can do it.
OPM
OPA, yep.
Sure.
so that the public knows.
And there was an interview, NBC covered this, and they actually interviewed voters, and every one of the voters that they spoke with said they had no issue. Which is not to say that it's not obviously it was a concern to other individuals. And finally, we say that we will definitely look at this in the future, as well as all of our procedures, to see if we need to do anything differently. We would definitely check. It's this time, it was like the perfect storm. It's the way the ballot was laid out, together with the legally required. We have to do something like a whole, so we're going to be very, very cautious.
Well, and this builds into my ongoing theme of market to market, right? Going back and looking at how it currently says, as jumbled or confusing as it might be, but this implicates we don't have the tax roll is needed if you have two envelopes. So you know which one is the envelope that the ballot goes into, and then which is the envelope that gets mailed back to the registrar. And we don't have two envelopes. And so there's actually, it's really hard to confuse which envelope to use. And, it's the outer envelope gets this tactile, but we don't have that. So does the code require us? And yes, I know elect may have signed off on it, but do we want to keep doing things that are, right? It's the level setting, like how well are we doing when you go back and scrape away all of our processes? When you look at the code, are we compliant? And right, and using one ballot, one envelope instead of two. Well, the code talks about having the outer envelope and the inner envelope. Now we use this little flap, and does a flap count as an envelope? And who gets to decide? I mean, it's just kind of like I'm like, the problem is when this happened, it wasn't kind of the first time that I felt like, oh, here's another thing that there's no double check. I appreciate the culture of the office is to comply with the rules. And there are a lot of rules, and we spend our lives. You spend your lives complying with those rules. What I worry about is there's skepticism. There are people in the community who don't see all the efforts that go in. So having a red hat, like let's have let's get this absentee ballot for this election. let's stick it in, let's see if we can hack the election by, oh yeah, the vote is visible. So it's that kind of a culture of, yes, we're really good, we try really hard to follow the rules, but having someone assigned to be deeply skeptical so they can catch this kind of thing before it occurs.
You've raised the issue that is one of my favorite issues, and I thought this ballot was particularly helpful because this is the first time in several elections that we have had a 2-column first page ballot. And for those who are reading and have difficulty, and I know you get concerns, and so do I, about sometimes how difficult it is to read a ballot that is a 3-column ballot because it's narrow, 3 narrow columns and in 4 languages. So none of the bubbles can possibly have ever shown on those because this, we had the opportunity to be helpful to people reading the ballot, and the staff used a 2-column ballot, bigger print, bigger, it's no good details on it.
Okay,
This is a heck of an election for that to happen.
It sure is. Are you there, Mr. Shapiro? Yes.
I am here. I do have a question, comment. So the first thing, just, I guess in this, in the report, the last sentence on this says, you will, prior to future elections, we will consider ballot contest layout as it relates to the absentee return ballot. I do think, and I guess I'm in agreement with Kevin, that you need to consider whether this ballot needs a hole punch, because it's not clear that it's legally required. I also have a practical question. So if you are visually impaired and you can't see, how do you fill out this ballot? Like, shouldn't there be a special Braille ballot for you? I mean, it's the only visual thing we're doing is this hole punch, or what am I missing?
Is it a special program show? Would you like to explain?
Yeah, there's an online system are required to use by Department of Elections for voters who are visually impaired to mark their ballot online. They can listen to it and then, mark it through their computer and then print their ballot. And so, but we also send them a ballot in the mail. So they have an assistance form and a ballot should they decide not to use the online system, or they have the envelopes that they use to mail that ballot back. So now they've received an envelope in the mail. They've got the inner envelope. They have instructions. They have a ballot. And so, with the hole in the ballot, with the hole in the envelope, they know which envelope to use.
Do those voters receive 2 envelopes, an inner envelope and an outer envelope?
No, they receive the same thing that all other voters receive. We send
Which
them a
is-
regular ballot package.
Okay.
And so they print their marked ballot on their computer. And then they take that and they can fold it up and put it into the correct ballot.
The information that would need to be filled out on the outside of the envelope that gets covered by the flap. Do we
Yeah,
still
you don't
expect
know
those
what you
voters
do.
to
We
get that
send,
information?
we send them, if we still send them an affirmation, yeah. We send them an affirmation page that they can complete on their computer. And it's the statement of voter, and they can type in their name and the address, and we tell them to print that and their last four, their social, et cetera. And then we tell them to print that and just sign it anywhere on the form. And then they send that back to us with their ballot. And that way they don't have to fill out the outside. Now they can, if they want, work with an assistant. The assistant can fill out that portion of it and fill out the assistance form. But we have several blind voters that we talk to regularly on the phone, and they are adamant that they want to be able to do this themselves and vote totally privately and get that ballot back to us. And they call and check and make sure they're doing it okay. So that's how we get past the statement on the back, because they're signing the statement of voter. And they have all the information. Yeah.
So there's only one envelope though.
Right.
One return
mailer.
I
Right.
mean, do they actually make use of this hole in their process, the voter?
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I guess the law says we have to have a hole in that.
I don't know that it does. That's what I'm asking. I'm hearing, I haven't looked at it, but
We can ask Alexa, see what they say.
So the language of the code refers to an outer envelope, and that's the issue, because we don't have an outer and inner envelope system. The general register shall cause the outer envelope containing the ballot return envelope and accessible instructions to have a tactile marking that identifies the outer envelope as the outer envelope to the voter. For purposes of this section, tactile marking includes a hole punch, a corner, or a tactile sticker. And that code section dovetails with the code section 2 sections later that describes the absentee. After the voter has marked his absentee ballot, he shall A, enclose the ballot in the envelope provided for that purpose, B, seal the envelope, C, fill in and sign the statement printed on the back of the envelope, D, enclose the ballot envelope and any required assistance form within the envelope directed to the general registrar. So the code is written hard-coded to use 2 envelopes. And so the hard coding of the outer envelope needing the tactile marker is to distinguish between those 2 envelopes. Because we don't use 2 envelopes, the intent of the tactile is vitiated. I mean, you're not going to confuse which envelope. The code still says have a tactile reminder on the outer envelope. So if we're going to follow the code, our outer envelope ought to have a tactile reminder.
Yeah.
But then we ought not have a tactile reminder that exposes the vote to the public. This is kind of a fail.
Cheryl, here's another question. Do you, in your instructions to the impaired voter, do you say anything about this hole punch?
I don't remember. I don't think we do. No.
Okay, that proves that it's not useful. Okay, so first of all, it seems like you could move it. You could do a cut corner instead of a hole punch, or a tactile sticker, which would be a raised thing. And I don't know if there's some reason why all envelopes have to have this, or just since you're dealing with a small set of people, if you could have custom envelopes. But putting that aside, clearly we're not using the hole punch for any purpose because we're not telling them to do anything with it. So I would say I think my bottom line is, I think we should fix the problem going forward. It's not going to be that, there's going to be some solution to this. It may include changing the ballot layout, but it may include just changing the envelope. And I think we should consider both and do, whatever's most efficient and whatever makes sense to prevent this from happening again.
Anything else? Okay, let's go on to electoral board reports and we'll start with Mr. Freeman.
I have nothing to report. I've already addressed
You've
a matter
already
that,
addressed
yeah,
it.
a matter that came to my attention,
Okay.
the Polling precinct.
I have just an informational item for board members, which I can't find. The office of, just so you know, and we have, so everybody else knows we've got one. The office of, well, whatever we're calling design review in the county now, it changes. Called and asked me and I included Beth to give them some information about in a land use development about what kind of room, what were the requirements of a room for a polling place, because there are a number of them. And so we'll post this stuff. We just have, it's the list of recommended specifications for polling place, and attached are the ADA requirements, which are also part of that. And so we will be sure that the Department of Evaluation of Zoning things, whatever that's called, gets this information. The Board of Supervisors had also asked for it. And the goal here is to be sure in new development, particularly in higher density developments like Tyson's and Reston, that we have places built in that have the requirements not only of the size of the room, but of a place to have accessible parking, that the room has an entrance and an exit, all those kinds of requirements. And that it can be opened at 6 a.m. and closed at 7 p.m. The things that the building has to go along with. And so we have that now for anybody that wants to think about telling us of a place where, particularly a public place that they've been in that's useful, we'd be happy to know that. Now, the bad news is that some of those places are located where we already have a perfectly good, maybe even better place to locate precincts, but locating precincts is becoming a challenge. And I just wanted to let you know that that was there.
That's great.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that is. Did they lean into us on that or did we lean into them?
I leaned into them at a presentation of the board. They asked for it, and then Robbie and everybody helped throw in things, and Beth put it together, and so we have it so that we know what we need. I think that's all I have. Jeff, what do you have? You're done too? Okay.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything for you.
All right, moving on to the resource allocation, Robbie. Whoever does resource allocation, you have it.
Well,
in
that's the
front
new
of you?
business, yeah.
Oh, yes, that's new business.
Sure. So we have the resource allocation for the December election here in front of us, much shorter than only 29 precincts. Of course, every election is important to us. We want to make sure we prepare for this one thoroughly. As Eric described during his report, we adjusted the formula that we use for determining how many ballots to prepare for each precinct. It's a much tighter allocation than we normally do, but we're of course prepared to print additional ballots on ballot demand printers if we need to. In terms of the other resources that are allocated to each precinct, we're doing the standard 3 to 5 poll books, 2 ballot marking devices, 2 ballot scanners, 5 to 7 election officers. All in all, what we did, we had the benefit of the recent September special election. We can look at the resources we deployed in that election, how much they were used. We can look at the actual turnout that we saw in that election, which was 19% in the Braddock district. It was the highest turnout of any of the districts, excluding Mason district, which only had 2 precincts in the September election. And so there is interest within the Braddock district. So if turnout does match what it was in September election, we'll already have enough ballots for it. If it exceeds it, we'll be ready to get them more ballots. Most likely it'll be a bit under that one, and we should have enough in regards to that. There are a couple of precincts which were not part of the September election. Yes, and for those 2 precincts,
I'll address that.
I'm just going to mention we're defaulting to 25% for those 2, and I'm sure I know you have some thoughts on at least one of those.
I think that we should, let me put it this way. North Springfield, 110 North Springfield precinct is in the 8th district, as you're looking on the list. And we are ordering fewer ballots because they weren't on the 8th district. We're ordering fewer ballots than the percentage for the 23 election day. And I think, and that is the home precinct of 2 of the candidates in the election. And I don't know about you all, but when you live in a precinct, you work really hard not to lose your own precinct. So that's going to be really interesting in that precinct to see who can get their neighbors out the most. And I think we should not be under acquiring ballots there. I think we should raise that to however you want to raise it, so it's above the 28, the 29% of the last time they voted. It ought to be at least, that shouldn't be below it. It should be at least to 30% because it's 29, however you order it. Because that neighborhood, there'll be a lot of people called and reminded to go vote in that precinct. So that's the only thing. I think the rest is an interesting way to see what we can do, but that's a home precinct candidates.
We will increase
That
that
rarely happens.
30%. We will also be starting at 10 a.m. We'll be looking at the turnout and print ballots if we need to for any location in addition.
This one, in local elections, people who live in the neighborhood hate to lose their own precinct, trust me. That's all I have. Is there a motion to adopt this? I'll move we adopt this with that correction. Is there?
Yeah, I'll step in.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Mr. Shapiro, you have discussion?
I'm good.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We come now to public comment.
Well, I had something under new business.
Oh, under for business.
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't a report, but it was a new
Okay.
business.
All right.
So this is going to follow up on something that Robbie has raised over a course of several meetings. That has to do with the appointment of chiefs by the party of the governor. And the longstanding policy of the board that all of the chiefs be of the party of the governor. That has created training constraints and challenges on the September special election. The elections office was unable to staff all of the chiefs from the party of the governor. And so there was some crossover. We heard that as of right now, all of the chiefs are going to be from the party of the governor this coming election, but if people get sick or if there's absences, that we have a number of chiefs that will not, that are scheduled as backup from the party that's not of the party of the governor. And so there are, it creates an occasion to revisit and rethink that rationale to have all of the chiefs from one party and all of the assistant chiefs from the opposite party, which creates a training bottleneck, as has been explained. And so I would move that we alter that policy and say, let's have an equal number of chiefs from the party of the governor, an equal number of chiefs from the party of from the other major party. And by implication, then half of the assistant chiefs will be from the party of the governor and half the assistant chiefs will be from the other party, which will, in this day where there is strain and polarization, the look of having half the chiefs from one party and half the chiefs from another party is a good look. It is symbolically, I think it's a symbol of the comedy and the ability of the two sides to work together. I tend to not think that there's much difference if you're a chief versus an assistant chief as far as your soberness and interest in good elections, but I think this would telegraph something that's important to the election officers themselves, the chiefs themselves, and would allow the flexibility that the electoral office has talked about in having chiefs and having a sufficient number of well-trained chiefs and allow selection of the very best chiefs from both parties to be there and operating our elections both as chiefs and assistants. So I would move that change. Now, I think it's too soon, too early to try to make that change by the November election, although with the opposed, I think those assignments have been out for over a month.
Yes, they have.
It may be too soon for the December election, although that I don't know, and that's such a small election, maybe I don't know if those assignments have gone out yet or not. I haven't spoken to you. But the concept is from here on out, with the exception of where assignments have already been made, that we would go and have a 50-50 division of chiefs and assistant chiefs.
I'll second that motion.
I kind of put my discussion up front.
You did.
Yeah, it's always confusing. We don't have it down to a science here, but I think the Roberts rules is we have the discussion now. I'm not sure. Kate, I defer to you.
If you have something to discuss, say,
Well,
let me, I have,
all right, I'll just say I'll second it. I agree with the reasons Kevin's given. This is not an issue I would have thought of, but Ravi has made it clear that he struggles with the logistics. It's also true that if you have the same party for 8 years, then the other party loses institutional experience and has to build it back. So I think this is a more stable system because both parties on an ongoing basis will be training people to be chiefs. And also it gives, as I said, Ravi, the flexibility as to who's a chief, who's an assistant, who to appoint. So I think it just solves a lot of logistical difficulties And, I don't think anyone can say it's not fair. And I think now is the right time. We're under the Rawlsian veil of ignorance. You guys remember that? The Rawlsian veil of ignorance? Uh, Never mind. But we don't know the outcome of the election. So now's the time to make the change. And I think that those are the main reasons that I'm supporting it. I think there's just a lot of benefits, and I don't see a downside. We apparently have had the current system in place for some period of time, but it's not time immemorial. So it's a good time. We're making the office, I think, run really well. The staff is just firing on all cylinders, and I think this is going to push us in that same direction.
I would offer, you have any comments? Already
So I already spoke on.
I would offer, I really think that the difficulty is with the quota aspect of it. And that establishing another hard number, like 50% and 50%, is going to be equally as hard. We'll be having to violate it, to accept it every time, because you'll still have the number of people going both ways. You'll still have, you set a number that you can't meet and you'll have difficulties. And I really would, and there's not enough of us, to have this discussion. I think we'll have to revisit it probably. But I think there are 2 or 3 things we ought to think about before we do another hard number. One is, I think to be a chief in Fairfax County, you should have been a chief or an assistant chief before. And that, I think that's the most important part. You don't have to have been a chief, but you need to have been an assistant chief. And at least, if we don't have one of those, we're very lucky that we have a lot of people. You should have at least taken the training for one of them. People can take the training to be a chief and an assistant chief without being a chief or an assistant chief, if they aspire to do that, correct? They have the opportunity to do that. Yes. So if you want to do that, because the difficulty comes when we have to assign chiefs who have never been either. And we know that's a complication, no matter what the party is. And when we set up a quota like this again, a hard number, we're going to run into that again at the last minute. So I prefer that, and for that reason, that we still haven't addressed that. I am not willing to support this motion now in that form, because I think we need to address the basic situation. And I think we need to think about it a little as to what is the qualification. If you had to have 260 chiefs and you can't get half of them to be one party or the other, you're out of sync again, and we have to figure a way to do it. And we may not have anybody at the last minute. So that has done either. So with the straitjacket aspect of it is still there. And I think that's a complication that I would have liked to have been able to have had discussion on, to say something to the effect of that not change the rule of whatever the party of the governor is, but that to be a chief or an assistant chief, you have to have had that training. And then when you run out, and then when you run out, you have the replacement. Or we could say when you run out, you can be replaced, but we're still getting ourselves wrapped around a number that puts us at the last minute in trouble. And I think we need to give it some more thought, because I agree with you. I think we need to fix that. We do not want people to have to be chiefs who have never been chiefs or assistant chiefs. We are even an election officer for that matter. But this is their first time, and all of a sudden they're a chief. And I agree, that's the wrong thing to do.
I asked for a very important clarification. I did it the other way in Alexandria, but I didn't switch from this way. It felt very foreign to me when I came here 8 years ago. I never switched from this to the other way. How would we accomplish that? Who would make the decisions? You're not going to be a chief this time. Currently it's the party of the governor. If that's something I would decide, Robbie would decide. I think if this were to happen, the electoral board should be involved, because you're gonna have a lot of very unhappy people. You know, why this one, not that one?
I would expect the staff to handle that, but if it were I would put a couple of different ways. One is all the odd number precincts this election are gonna be one party, all the even numbered are gonna be the other. Or you can do it based on, these are my best. Here's the roster of the very best chiefs that we have. And what's their home precinct? And you'll be pulling the very best from one side and the very best from the other, and it may be that the very best, you have a lot, you know, there may be stronger chiefs from one part or the other, but we would still want to have parity. And you would then staff it based on all of the complexities that currently go into deciding who's going to be a chief. That's something that already happens. It happens every election, every precinct, you have to decide who everybody would like to be chief. And so those types of evaluations, I imagine, would continue to happen in the same manner that they're happening now.
I will say that flexibility that the board has given us has been very helpful, that if we don't get to 100%, as may be the case this time, we can use the other party. If there is even more flexibility, in other words, not going with 50-50, but going back towards it, I think that would be very valuable.
Well, I think so. You have this line below which you begin to sink, or, you know, the water level gets too high if you're trying to get under it. So if the water's down at the knees, it's unlikely to run out there, right? The difference between trying to staff 50% of positions versus 100% of positions just is a magnitude difference.
Yeah, I don't think they're, 50-50 being a hard number is really, it's better than it is now as far as being able to find people, and gives Robbie more flexibility. And I also don't think the training issue has to be combined with this motion. We've always managed to get chiefs trained, and this is actually going to create more stability, because like, let's say you go let's say the Republicans win this election. That's another 4 years. That'll have been 8 years when no Democrat has been a chief. Then let's say it flips. Now suddenly you've got to staff 100% of the positions from the Democrat pool, which has been depleted as to people who have ever been chiefs. This allows an ongoing training in each party, and it's fair. It's 50-50. So I don't see I don't see an issue here.
Does that I disagree with you. I think that what this does is makes it more complicated to have. If we need to have some definition about what the qualification for a chief is, and we don't have that. So now we're going to assign everybody who is an assistant chief to being always an assistant chief. If the argument is that we have fewer requirements for chief, I all for the flexibility. I think we do flexibility, but I think by driving a 50%, a hard number, you're right back in the position of having come to us without any requirement and saying, okay, we can't do it. Can we modify it? A hard number is a hard number. You just are set up another rule that we can't handle. So we need to develop a policy that doesn't require violating every time we establish it. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And the chair votes no. Motion carries. Is there anything else?
On the,
We have citizens.
yeah.
Just to be clear,
on-
is there a request for this to take effect, which I would recommend strongly against, for obviously not for November, but even for December? I would recommend we're too far.
Yeah, no,
Have the
January.
assignments been made for December?
Yeah, I would do it for January.
Precinct's been made for December.
The assignments for December we made.
We started taking a look at the assignments. We haven't made the formal assignments yet, but I agree with her. I think it makes sense to wait till January. It would be, because effectively we're trying to repeat the same assignments that we're using for November for the December election.
I mean, that's the other point. When you have 4 elections a year and the extra duties of a chief, it mitigates some of the burden that chiefs And I've heard that from people who served as chief, that being a chief is an added
Make this hard.
measure, and doing it 4 times a year versus 2 times a year is just more manageable.
Hang on, we're gonna do some more next year.
Well,
Probably.
indeed.
Okay, so this will take, it's the consensus of the board that this takes effect next year.
Yes.
Yes,
Public comment. The public, as those of you who want to make a public comment, you know, either online or in person, you have to raise your hand to be organized, recognized, and organized probably. Provide your name and the organization you represent, if any, before giving a statement. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. And the board may answer, as you know, certain queries. However, if more research is required, the board may defer an answer. The board may also request written submission of the comment or inquiry. For those present in the room, comments will be made from our podium. So, Andy, please don't talk about the Providence Room. Okay, fine.
But I can talk about it for about an hour.
Andy has the good fortune to be in every year when I go to a precinct, it doesn't matter where, she's there. So I think there are multiple Andys. Go ahead.
My name is Andy Bayer. I'm with the Fairfax County Republican Committee. And I'm just going to say for the record, the very first time I was chief, I was told, an EO, I was asked if I would become a chief. The second time I was an EO, I was asked to become a chief. And the third time, and finally, I don't know, I finally bit the bullet, and I've loved doing it. So I've had the luxury of being at the Jim Scott Community Center, which is also an early voting satellite. And as we know that the locations that serve as both an early voting satellite and an election day satellite, and I've barked up this tree before because I've had to turn away voters. And so for the September special election, I directed my EOs at about 10:30 to start tallying how many people we were turning away. And it estimated to be about 40%. And Kate showed up halfway through the day, recognizing the problem because it was also occurring at other locations. And so I would like to ask that for the location that I'm at and the other handful of locations that serve dually as an early voting site and an election day satellite, that the EOs, the check-in people at those satellites, actually keep track of how many voters they turn away, and not just how many they turn away, but what that person's home precinct is. Because I think that that will give the board the metrics that they need, possibly, to enhance a better decision-making process. So I am prepared to do that at my precinct because I think it's helpful. Typically we get the voters from the surrounding precincts and it's very easy for them. What is difficult is if it's raining, snowy, icy, dark, and it's 6:45 and I have to tell a voter to go from the Jim Scott Community Center to Price or to Mantua or to Gallows. That's difficult. So I'm just saying that is my recommendation. I know I've barked at this tree. I've tried in my head to devise solutions, and I am prepared to take those measures. But if the board would support that and this office would support it, maybe they want to give us a form to fill out to record this or do it somehow that assists them in this process better.
Andy, I think you didn't say what you meant. I'm agreeing with you if you didn't say what you meant. You said in the satellite, you mean in the precinct on election day that has been a satellite.
Correct.
And I that is a problem. Let me give an example. Andy's talking about having surveys in Hunter's Branch now.
Hunter's Branch.
It's in Hunter's Branch precinct on election day. And all these people came in because 2 days before or 3 days before, it was the Jim Scott satellite. It is in the community center. We have about 4 or 5 of those. One of them is here. because this is everybody's voting place until election day when it's only Monument Precinct. And we have worked to signs, and I've shared, I'm trying to figure out what we do about that
And the
too.
problem for me is I'm near a metro, right?
Yes,
And so you
yes.
get all these people who who pass by and see these signs for 45 days.
And then they come in, yeah.
Or they voted there in the past, early voting, and it's in their head, I'm gonna go vote there on election day. And so I'm just offering what I've come up with as a possible solution that I'm willing to do. If you agree that that's good and you feel like the other locations should do the same thing, then more power.
Andy, if it's the sense of the board, let's have somebody from the office and you and me and a couple of people that have generally run those precincts after their satellites, sit down and think about, sort of have a little task force, unofficial, to think about what we might do. And then, because we do need to notify those chiefs in those precincts for this year particularly, that's a really good suggestion, that they need to be watching that early if people show up, and we'll go back and look at the signage.
And then the parties outside, the
Yeah.
voter comes back out and they haven't voted, then the people in the tents are like, how, they turned you away, they can't turn you
Yeah,
away,
they
and
go through all that.
and we
Yes.
have, we want those people, their ballots to count on election
Yes,
day,
we
and
do.
we know that they need to go vote in their home precinct.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
That may have taken more than 3 minutes.
I'm sorry,
We talked about that before,
I didn't talk about the Providence Community Room.
but it is. We're off limits for now. It is a problem that we've worked on. It's not that we've been doing nothing. We've been doing a lot of some things. And because people know where the satellites are, we're having trouble figuring out. It was like 4 years ago now that we had somebody come in here on election day, then to come in to appeal their provisional because they couldn't understand that they couldn't vote here on election day. So it's been a problem for a while. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
2 hands online.
Oh, do I have hands up here?
Megan,
Megan. Megan, I can't see you, but go for it.
Hello, thank you for taking my public comment. Megan Challenger, I am the chair of the Election Law and Voter Protection Committee for the Fairfax Democrats. My public comment today will be on the policy just adopted by the board regarding splitting chiefs 50-50. This is so obviously a way of trying to steal power away from Democrats. It also just is so very poorly thought out. Why should Stratford Landing Precinct always have a Republican while Fort Hunt Precinct always has a Democrat year after year, election after election? It makes no sense. Will the size of the precinct be considered with regard to the which precincts get Democrats and which ones get Republicans so that voters are equally represented within chiefs at each location? This also just seems like an opportunity for both parties, both Democrats and Republicans, to claim unfairness, to nitpick, to waste the time of staff saying, this isn't fair, why does this place have this one and this one has this one, rather than having a universal policy. This will waste staff time in the office that could be used to actually provide needed training, instruction, and direction to chiefs on how to do their jobs well, instead of wasting their time dealing with parties saying this isn't fair, which is, I guarantee after this, you're gonna have people, Republicans, Democrats, election chiefs, everyone. There's gonna be not a single person who's happy after this. So I think this is naive and just silly.
Thank you, Megan. Is there anyone else online?
Maria Burrell.
Maria Varel. Go for it, Maria.
Hi there. Thanks for taking I have a question. Can you tell me what has been done? It is in the camp of what the first woman speaking, the confusion about where to vote. We have Lorton Community Center, which is again a satellite, and as well as voting on election day. But my question is a little bit broader than that. What all has been done to just generally notify voters that on election day they need to vote in their precinct?
I was just noticing that. I think we're now saying after last year and everything we're putting out, on election day, you vote in your home precinct. Yes. That I didn't say that, and I was supposed to say that in the
Yellow.
in the yellow sample ballot and all those things because of that confusion. Yes.
Can there be any press issue, something that public notice? Quite frankly, I love that you guys do that, but it's been a while since that went out. And people, as you said earlier, people see for 45 days that this is a place to vote and they just go there on election day, right? So if we could please issue some kind of press, a couple days before the election day to remind people to go to their precinct. It's just the longer we're doing the early voting, the longer I think people are just assuming that's where they're voting.
Thank you for the suggestion. Anybody else?
David Lopez.
David Lopez. Yes, sir, you're on.
He's muted.
You're muted, I think. I see your hand, but I can't hear you. Sounds weird. There you go.
Still muted.
No, you're still muted.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, you are
Unmuted, correct?
unmuted. Go
Okay,
for
thank
it.
you. I'm a chief, a current precinct chief. This is only my 5th election as a precinct chief, but I agree with some of the earlier comments, and I'd just like to say that I think that the value of having both representatives of both parties, both principal parties, as chiefs and assistants chiefs, is this that you have both parties working together and being aware, being witness to how the elections are being conducted. I've seen no partisanship in my experience as being a chief. It is the most nonpartisan process that I could have imagined that occurs, and I value it extremely that we work so well together, and that the elections, that way we conduct elections, are so fair. There's no way to manipulate. That I can see. We've got this so well set up that it's just feedback to both parties that the process is excellent, that it's being conducted fairly. And the training, you mentioned training, Kate, the training, that I got, what didn't come from my party, and my party really didn't encourage me to become a chief. My training, my interest in becoming a chief, well, it was interest in just becoming an election officer first. And then when the parties flipped and you needed chiefs, then I volunteered to do that. And my training all came from the county. And so the real issue is your party, are both parties going to equally promote people to become, try to encourage people from their party to become chiefs? You can't really control as a county how many you have from one party or the other. That's up to the party to do that. So whether you make it 50 from one party and 50 from another, or you make it 100% chiefs from one party and assistant chiefs from the other, I agree with you, Kate, that I don't think that matters. You still have the same math problem. And if one party doesn't promote enough or doesn't encourage enough people to come be chiefs, then you're not going to have enough from that party, and you just have to be flexible. There's no other choice. And the way the elections office is handling that now, by filling in when one party doesn't have enough participants, I think is great. I know it's a challenge for them, but I think that's the way to do it. So that's my comment for you. I hope it helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. Hearing and seeing no one, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you.
I will second that.
And all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting is adjourned.